Hello, so today's video is going to be a Syndra video. Syndra is back, question mark? Syndra's really good in the current landscape of the game. They just buffed Eldritch a lot, they buffed Syndra particularly, they also buffed Nyla. There's a lot of different options to play when you're playing Eldritch with Syndra. Many different variations are really strong. A lot of them don't even play as much towards Syndra as they do towards Nyla and Warriors and stuff like that. Eldritch is very strong in general right now. Playing 7 Eldritch and getting some of the Eldritch specific augments like School Mascot or an Eldritch Crown is actually really viable. It was very strong last patch as well, don't get me wrong. So if you were playing last patch, there was many times where if someone had a really good Syndra spot or a really good Eldritch spot, they would just win out. Like School Mascot with like 7 Eldritch Syndra Reroll was really good last patch. Now that they just buffed everything, it's starting to feel like that little taste of, oh, I'm seeing like this a lot more in a lot more lobbies. But you know, specifically in this game, I think I started out with a Syndra at one point, and it looked like a decent Eldritch opener, so I decided to just hard force towards the Syndra. I just want to do a little disclaimer, right? This was the last game on my stream. I was up LP. I didn't really care that much. I just saw early Syndra. I think I get dropped a tier here or something. No, I get dropped a bow, whatever. But I decided to myself, you know what? I'm just gonna play towards Syndra. I think I didn't have like an augment that I felt like I had a particularly like crazy good start to. So I just like, you know, typed Syndra, deafen, and just like angled myself towards Syndra. It was mostly to try it out, right? Me as being like a YouTube content creator, I feel like sometimes my videos get a little bit boring if I keep playing the same comps. You know, I'm sitting on 2 or 3 different Hui and Callista VODs that I didn't upload. You know, a lot of times the games that you end up in, sometimes they're like the same as a video that I did the day before. You can even see on my current channel, there's like 3 or 4 days that I went and I was showing you guys the same shapeshifter lines. So I'm always trying to do something new. It was the last game of the day, so I said, you know what, whether I win or whether I lose this game, I just want to make sure that I'm playing something different, so at least I can make a video about it and talk about some of the different comps that got buffed this patch. I do a quick scout around. I see one person has a Syndra on their bench, but they also have Aries, so I feel like if I just call Syndra and play towards Syndra, that's fine. Keepers is good if I'm playing Warrior. Precise planning is pretty good if I set myself up for like, you know, a level 8 board. But I hit Pandora's here. I think Pandora's is really strong with Syndra. The main part about Syndra that you wanted to have is scaling. If you read Syndra's toolkit, I'm going to try and show you guys some stats and stuff in general. Excuse me. But anyways, I basically take Pandora's and I hard force towards it. I'm not saying that this is the best play to do, but Syndra, if you look at the stats and you play like a Syndra 3, you'll see that it averages pretty well. It averages like in the 4s, but a lot of it is tied to like the power level of 7 Eldritch as well. Sorry, 10 Eldritch isn't really a thing. 7 Eldritch right here. You'll see that it averages well above a 4.0. Really consistent top 4 percentage, being a reroll comp, and actually has a really high win percentage. There's a lot of great cases where you can hit like these really strong boards and augments. And if you look at the units, a lot of times you're capping out around Arcana. A lot of times you're playing Eldritch with Arcana. You'll see that Fiora and Morgana do really well in these comps as well, and just playing around 5 costs. Obviously there's very low sample size because this is the new patch, so it's you know, gonna be a little bit harder to tell exactly what the strongest boards are. But I've been seeing a lot of boards where you play around Fiora as well, and then you're going for like Nyla 3. If you look at Syndra 3, 3.48 with 7 Eldritch, and then if you go Nyla 3, I think the stats are better. 3.49. So a lot of times when you're doing Eldritch Reroll now, I think the line is that you usually play towards Nyla. You can hit both Nyla and Nyla and the Syndra, and then play around Fiora with like the other line. I usually play like the Karma Preserver style setup or a Preserver Arcana setup. As you can see, Morgana places really high. So there's lots of different ways you can play this board. If you're looking at 7 Eldritch, a lot of times, all of the comps that do really well are the ones that don't specifically just play 7 Eldritch, right? You can hit 7 Eldritch by just playing these units, but a lot of times you want 1 or even 2 spatulas, and then you're going to try and play around 3-star Mordekaiser, 3-star Nyla, 3-star Syndra, and then if you have spatulas, you usually can drop the Ashe and some of the more useless units, but usually you're first to drop the Ashe. The old way of playing this board is that you would just play around having a Karma with an Eldritch emblem. So this is how it was like last patch pretty consistently. You would play around the Karma with a emblem. Nowadays, what people typically end up doing is that if you play towards Nyla 3, you actually just put in a Fiora. Which, you know, this is still new tech. You know, people will flush it out and figure out the perfect optimal line eventually. But playing around Nyla is actually way stronger than Syndra. Incanter isn't that insane for Syndra. She does like to have a bunch of AP. But Syndra, you just scale her and she does some shredding and does some extra damage in the back line, which is pretty nice. But the real juice a lot of times is playing around Nyla. A lot of times you can also play around Arcana if you have enough emblems. I've seen boards like this. I've actually lost to boards like this even last patch, where you're playing Tahm Kench and Xerath and you just giga juice your entire board and it caps out very, very, very high. Obviously this is a setup where I have like 9 units in, like a level 9 board, but in a lot of cases, if you have like 2 Eldritch emblems, or you have like an Eldritch emblem on like a target dummy or something, sometimes you can even run it that you can play multiple different Arcana units and really juice up this board. You saw in the stats there's also variations where you're playing around Morgana and Witchcraft. That works out really well. If you have an extra emblem, then you can play around the Nico for shapeshifter synergy with the Briar, right? Stuff like this that's a lot more creative if you have 2 emblems. But either way, the board is very strong. Eldritch is, I would argue, like fairly strong. It's a really good line to play into. I just want to try forcing it to see how strong it is. A lot of times when something is really broken, even if you don't have the greatest spot for it, you just kind of force into it and things kind of work out really nicely. The main thing that you want is, if you read Syndra's toolkit, you want to get a Syndra early because the Syndra does scale. That's the most important part. Now, if you're playing around Nyla, you maybe don't need the Syndra to scale that aggressively if she's not your main damage dealer. But a lot of times you're trying to scale up the Syndra and give her as many good items as possible. Typically, like the general good item start is Shojin Nashers. Nowadays you want to build a lot of AP on Syndra. I like to make Archangels because Archangels is made with a tier, so it gives you a bit of starting mana, so it makes your first cast go off a little bit faster, and sometimes it can cheese you an extra cast in a fight. So I like to put Archangels, but JG is really efficient to make because it gets rid of a glove for you. You can make anti-heal on her like Red Buff or Morello. They're all good in the stats. I think the best performer in the stats I think is Rabadon's, but it's still so early that things are changing every day. It's like second day of new patch, so don't worry too much about like what the optimal thing is. Just know that Syndra is very strong. Because I have Pandora's, I immediately just make 2 complete Syndra items. So I have Shojin Nashers. You can argue which one's better. Some people really like adaptive helm builds, like double adaptive helm and another AP item. There's lots of different variations. I'm just going with like the oldie goldie classic, which is Shojin Nashers. Shojin gives you more mana every auto. It gives you 5 extra mana. And then Nashers 2 gives you a bunch of attack speed. So together you just generate a bunch of mana, cast a bunch of times, scale up the Syndra early game. That's why I took Pandora's. Pandora's early, if you don't have really great items for Syndra, it can be really, really bad if you don't have it. Because it's silver Pandoras as well. Silver augments are generally weaker relative to the rest of the lobby. It's not like somebody's going to hit a silver combat or a silver rolling augment and they're going to be like miles ahead of me or like in a really good spot. So getting silver Pandoras is really, really high value. And it's typically very good on these type of comps where the items are very specific, where you need Syndra to have like really good items or else you won't do anything for much of the game. So it actually works out really nicely. So I'm just hard forcing Syndra, like I said. If you have one Syndra and not that great items, I do not recommend just taking Pandora's and playing around it and just like, fuck it, me Syndra, no pivot. I don't recommend this playstyle, but like I said, I just wanted to try it out for YouTube. I didn't really care about my placements this game. I didn't really care if I went top 4 or bot 4. I was mostly just saying, okay, let's see how strong Syndra is, and then I can use this to gauge for the rest of the set, or the rest of the patch at least, whether or not I have a good Syndra spot. It's really hard sometimes to tell with the patch notes. They've been buffing Eldritch a lot. In my head, when I looked at the buffs, I said Eldritch might be really, really broken. Eldritch might be one of the best traits to play around. I don't know how broken it is, so I would like to just force towards it at least one game early on in the patch so that I can kind of gauge relatively to the rest of the comps that I've been playing how strong this comp kind of stabilizes in the mid game and gets into the late game. So that was my thought process towards it. I said, you know, if I go instant 8th for this, I'm okay with that. At least I know that Syndra isn't like abusable, that you see a single Syndra and you should play towards it. It's mostly just to like learn. Here I get items for Archangels. I make Archangels. I was talking about it on stream. I like Archangels for giving starting mana. Your last item on Syndra, you always want to make like a really big AP item a lot of the times. Because just the way that they reworked her, the last item works really well as being like a really strong AP item to do a bunch of damage. I'm not too worried about making Shred early on. Usually you make anti-heal on Syndra, like a red buff is really good. But I didn't have that many items, like I didn't have like that many bows, and I don't want to wait for Pandora's too long to get my perfect items. So Archangels is like probably what I would consider my next best when I'm thinking about it, right? It gives a lot of AP. My team is very stall heavy because I have the Eldritch Beast that works as like an extra frontline unit. So Archangels will get some level of value that's a little bit better than probably like a Jewel Gauntlet. Anyways, I hit School Mascot, so this game's fucking over. School Mascot is really, really strong right now, especially with the Eldritch buffs. It's kind of like broken in a way, so I'm kind of down for it. I tailored just Eldritch to see if I can get either Eldritch Emblem, because I really want an Eldritch Emblem at one point in this game, or if I just get something like School Mascot, like one of the Eldritch traits. Here, I'm not really playing around Nyla this game. I know that Nyla is a viable version of this board to play around, but it seems a little bit more high roll. I feel like the Nyla version, you really want to have more than one spatula, and then it's significantly better. When you play around Nyla Eldritch, a lot of times it's hard to fit in like those extra Preserver Warrior type setups, in my opinion. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the way to go is always to play Nyla as your primary carry, and then you itemize Syndra later. But I'd rather have the scaling Syndra, and if I have items for Nyla, I'll collect Nylas, and I'll itemize the Nyla for late game. That's like my thought process. Anyways, because I took School Mascot, I get the Eldritch Emblem. I get the extra Syndra. So I roll for a Syndra 2 here. I'm probably going to be rerolling Syndra, so I'm going to be staying a low level, and I'm going to try and stabilize around this Syndra 2. I have a decent front line because I have the School Mascot that juices up my Eldritch Beast. So I'm not too worried about hitting Mordekaiser 2 or anything like that. But I'm going to try my best to collect some Syndras on level 6, and then I'll level to 7 at a good time in the game. Ideally, I can get a Spatula. If I get a Spatula, then I'll be super, super happy because a Spatula will turn into an Eldritch Emblem, and then I can more easily fit in 7 Eldritch. The biggest problem with Eldritch is that it's tied behind a 5 cost to hit 7. So you might spend your whole game, especially if you're rerolling Syndra, you're going to be at a relatively low level. You might spend your whole game and never find a Briar. So without an emblem, it's really hard to stabilize. I'm not exactly sure if 5 Eldritch is necessarily like a playable line, like 5 Eldritch Warriors, 5 Eldritch Nyla. The stats are too fresh for me to tell you exactly if it's good. Right now, it seems like 7 Eldritch is the key. But, you know, I'll keep tabs on it. I'll pay attention as people like evolve the meta and stuff like that. I'm not playing too much, so I can't personally like try it out myself. I'm not like grinding offline, trying every variation to learn every niche line right now. So I'm just relying on other people to figure it out, and then I'm just gonna like look at the stats and tell you guys in case you guys don't figure it out, which is totally fine. But anyways, we're looking around here. Nothing super crazy on Carousel. But I'll probably just take Rod to make a Spark. I already have some Shred, but or maybe I don't take Rod. Do I take Belt? What am I taking? Chainmail? I'm just making a Gargoyle. I think that was a mistake. That was a huge mistake. I took 1 cost Chain. You usually want to avoid taking low cost units on Carousel, just because the low cost units like make it harder for you to hit econ intervals. It's just like it's like everybody else is getting more gold than you, so you're putting yourself at an intrinsic deficit here, so I wouldn't want to do it. Also, what is this? You know what I don't understand? Why is Emblem so expensive in the early game, but then sometimes in late game I feel like it's cheaper? This is Conjure Emblem. This is what I mean by this game was kind of troll. So never do this, right? I'm gonna fucking like listen. I'm gonna clap my hands. Don't do this in your game. Okay, this is very bad. Like remember I was saying I really want an Eldritch Emblem here, and an Eldritch Emblem makes the game like a lot easier because then you don't need to have Briar. You hit 7 Eldritch. I'm School Mascot. It's like really, really good. You don't take an emblem when it's Pandora's into the emblem, right? There's like 16 emblems that you can get. You are not likely to hit an Eldritch Emblem anytime soon. Like, the odds of hitting it are so fucking low. Like, it is so low. Like, I think to get to, like, 50-50 odds, you have to wait something like 8 or 9 turns or something, right? Like, you have to wait, like, almost 2 whole stages before you're even at, like, halfway or, like, better than half odds of, like, hitting the right emblem, right? It's not very good. The reason I took it was because I have 2 outs actually, so it's a little bit better than that. I'm down to play it with an Arcana emblem. Like I said before, I've seen a lot of high capped boards that I want to try out that play around Syndra with Arcana, where you play Tahm Kench and then Xerath, and you just pop in all of those units. So I'm down to get an Arcana emblem. Here I'm rolling for Syndra. I collected a couple Syndras. I'm not really collecting any Mordekaisers, so at one point I might decide to roll on level 7, decrease my odds of finding Syndras, and have a greater chance of finding the Mordekaisers that I need. There's a Warrior emblem there. I could use it to make use of the Nyla, but like I said, I'm looking for Arcana emblem and Eldritch emblem. Now, before this was a viable strategy, before they changed the odds to include all of the emblems, right? So right now, the randomization of the emblems is any craftable emblem, right? So before, there was like craftable and uncraftables, which were like the gray emblems and then the colorful emblems. So if you had a colorful emblem and you tried to Pandora's or reforge it, it would only turn into another colorful emblem. Now, it can turn into the gray emblems as well. So there's basically like 16 options, or maybe not 16. I forget. Like, I think it's 16 options, because there's 8 components you can use to make either or. So it's very unlikely that it will just instantly reforge into an Eldritch emblem. It might take a really long time for that to happen. So at that point, it's not worth the 12 gold. 12 gold is a lot of gold for an emblem. So unless you have like a board that can make use of pretty much any emblem and they're all really high roll, like sometimes portal boards are like that, where they can like allow for a lot of different emblems, or if you're playing for like a specific win con, I wouldn't suggest doing that. I just want to make that very clear, because I don't want, I want you to know this was like a game where I was streaming, I was kind of trolling, I was saying, hey, wouldn't it be fun if I did this, I also got an extra emblem here, so all of that was worthless, because like, what the fuck. Belt is to make Eldritch emblem, so I'm gonna wait for the, if you have a spatula and you reforge it, a spatula turns into an, a frying pan, and a frying pan turns back into a spatula. So I'm just chilling here. I sell some of my units here that are extra. So frying pan's gonna next turn into the spatula, and then with the spatula I'll make with the belt that I'm holding into an Eldritch emblem, and then I'm gonna wait for the other emblem to turn into an Eldritch emblem, because like whatever. But yeah, like I said, I'm kind of just going for like, the fun build in this game. I was just trying to say to myself, yeah, let's have some fun here. Let's just take emblems and try our best to see if we hit something crazy. I was already hard forcing towards Syndra, so I wasn't super dialed in, I would say. But like I said, these aren't things that you should reproduce in your game. I'm going to repeat it a couple times. There's a lot of times where people just skip parts of my video, and then I get comments where they just clearly didn't watch the video. So unfortunately, I have to repeat myself sometimes, especially when I make games like this where I'm kind of like playing around a little bit. Here I hit an Eldritch emblem, by the way, so what the fuck. That's pretty high roll, I think. Hello. Alright, so 2 things. So I double checked my math, and yes, it's around 2 stages. That's like roughly like 10 to 11 turns before you're starting to be favored to actually have hit your emblem if you calculate the odds for it. I do not necessarily think that like you should like get really nitty gritty with the numbers. Just always keep in your head as a rough rule of thumb, if you're using Pandora's bench to try and hit the emblem that you want, it will take you approximately 2 stages. That's the way you should think about it. 2 stages is like average. Anything later than that is a low roll. Anything earlier than that is a high roll, right? So that's how you should always think about it. Or anything later is a low roll, anything better is a high roll. But 2 stages approximately. That's why it's not really recommended to ever do it. As you can see though, this is definitely a high roll. Peek on the bench, you'll see a emblem right there. That is the Eldritch emblem that I was hoping to reforge into. I definitely didn't take 2 stages. It's been like a stage and a little bit. So that's great for me. Here I make a big mistake. I take Innervating Locket. I'm pretty sorry, that's not a mistake. Innervating Locket is very, very good on Mordekaiser. But I leave it on my bench because I'm just doing too much this round. So I get the Eldritch emblem, which is the first thing I have to do. I buy a Study Hard. I'm trying to roll for the Syndra 3. But I also have a huge spike if I level to 7. So at one point I just decide, okay, we're just going to level to 7 here. I said I'm going to roll till around 20 gold. And then I'm going to roll on level 7 if I have to. So the reason it's so good is because I hit my 7 Eldritch. I completely, I think just doing too much in one turn it completely escaped me that the Mordekaiser's Innovating Lock is really good on Mordekaiser. So I leave it on my bench because I'm going to try and reforge it into like one of the shield ones, like Unending Despair or Forbidden Idol, which are both also really good on Mordekaiser. That's just a huge oversight by me. I think Innovating Locket is the second best item on Mordekaiser, or an artifact on Mordekaiser, so I definitely should have done it. If this game was a little bit more high roll, I would have rolled on 6 for Syndra 3 and then start pushing levels. However, if you watch these fights, you'll see that the 7 Eldritch with School Mascot, I was pretty sure it would be busted because like they buffed Eldritch, they buffed the Beast, they buffed some of his damage, like how he attacks and stuff like that. So I'm pretty certain that 7 Eldritch is going to be way stronger than rolling to 0 for the Syndra. So I wanted to make sure I had enough gold to make it to 7 to fit in 7 Eldritch. So I'm just going to rock the Syndra 2 for a little bit here. And then I'm going to hopefully find these last 2 copies of Syndra on level 7 at one point during this stage. But I want to rebuild my econ a little bit. I didn't want to completely devastate myself by rolling super deep for the Syndra and not hitting it. And the Eldritch Beast is going to put me in such a good spot. Because not only will it win me some of these fights, you'll see that he does an insane amount of damage, this Volibear. But additionally, the Eldritch Beast also stalls out the fight long enough for my Syndra to get some extra casts. If my front line isn't very strong, which it wasn't, I just have like a Mordekaiser in, which isn't even like close to being a Mordekaiser 3 at any point, I would much rather have a much stronger front line with the 7 Eldritch School Mascot. So this is specifically because I was School Mascot. I don't think 7 Eldritch is that massive of a spike where you have to level and not go for the Syndra 3 first. I think you're just shooting yourself in the foot and you should just go for the Syndra 3. However, because I'm School Mascot, you'll see that the Eldritch Beast is doing as much, if not more damage than my Syndra. That fight, you saw, I just won because I had 7 Eldritch. So that's 1 life won just by like leveling to 7. And it's also not that hard to find a 2 cost on level 7, by the way. It's not impossible. So I could reasonably find the Syndra on the level 7 odds. And rolling on 7 has its benefits because I also have the potential to hit Mordekaiser. There's also the small 1% chance that if I roll on level 7, I can also find Briar. So there's a couple options there. This is the part where it was very troll again. Like I said, this whole game, don't look at it to be like, this is the optimal way to play Syndra. This is what you gotta do to rank up fast. That's not what this video is for. It's a little bit of like, half a fun video and half a like, hey, let's just like explore and see how strong Syndra is. That's like the point of the video because that's what I was kind of doing on stream. I took another Eldritch emblem because I've never, ever the entire set have been in a spot to have 3 Eldritch emblems. So I say to myself, listen, if this game just randomly goes really, really long, I'm fucking down. Let's just get 10 Eldritch. I don't have a video where I hit 10 Eldritch. I've not even been close to hitting 10 Eldritch at any point during the set. Like, I don't think I've ever had 2 Eldritch emblems, let alone 3 Eldritch emblems. So I'm like, you know what? We're going to take 1 more emblem and we're just going to play for it. And Eldritch emblems also are pretty good because, like I said, the more Eldritch emblems you have, the more options you have to reduce, like, some of the shitty units, right? Like, this Shyvana, not Shyvana, sorry. This Elise, for example, unless I have a Briar to have Shapeshifter synergy, this Elise is fucking useless. Like, what is Elise doing for my board? She is not that good of a tank. She has no synergies, no stacks of any sort. Like, she's not really doing anything, right? Nami kind of does some stuns, so like there's an argument for keeping Nami in. But I could just put in like Vertical Arcana. I can do like all sorts of crazy stuff, right? I can play like Warrior Preservers for synergies with the Nyla. The more emblems you have, certain comps, like, they don't really fit nicely with the emblems. But I find that Eldritch, you can never have it's always good to have more. The Eldritch units don't really synergize with each other at all. Within the trait of Eldritch, the only 2 units that synergize are Briar with the Elise. So it's very, very difficult to like make boards that are very complex and like feed and do great things with each other and synergize really greatly with each other, because you just kind of don't like have that within the trait. Some of the other traits have a little bit more options and flexibility, like at the lower levels, though. Something like Portal, I find you can fit in some good synergy just inside the trait, right? There's 2 mages inside the trait, for example, so you just need like 1 extra unit to have a 3 mage synergy. There's Scholar within the trait, which makes it really nice. So if you have 1 Portal emblem, you get like a couple synergies that help out your carries and help out your front lines. So you know, stuff like that just as an example, like you know, for rhetorical reasons, or me just explaining my thought process. But either way, we're just gonna roll here pretty deep. We're gonna try and find this last Syndra as early as we can. We find a Karma, so we can put in the synergy for Incanter. I don't have Nyla items. I hit a Karma 2 out of nowhere. I don't know what's been going on this game. Some parts of the game I felt really low roll, and some parts I felt insanely high roll. So you know, I'm kind of down. Like let's just have it work out. Sure. I'm trying to pick an item here. I just want a Mordekaiser item, so I think I just take Cloak, and I'll make the last item after. I should roll for the Syndra. I run out of time because I didn't manage my time very well this turn. But yeah, we're probably not going to hit Mordekaiser 3. We have just so few Mordekaiser 3s, so we're just going to try and hit Syndra and Nyla and then move on. Nyla isn't even that important. Yes, Nyla 3 will strengthen our Eldritch Beast, so it's like good to go for. But I'm pretty sure this game, I'm just so far off of my units that I'd rather just like sell them and make Econ. I'm really poor. I was kind of hoping like low key to try and make it to 10 Eldritch, which I know is not going to happen now. If you're looking at the lobby HP, there's not like a good nice spread of HP around. It's like stage 5 and most people are like at 40 or less health. People have been getting railed by somebody, and it's not been me, so I don't know exactly what's going on in the lobby, but I haven't been paying attention. I'm barely even scouting this whole game. I definitely want to play there we go. I definitely want to play Arcana and have the Zareth in. So I'm gonna put Eldritch on Zareth. I'm rolling really deep for the Syndra. I'm 1 off. I still haven't found it, which sucks. 10 gold now, so any chance of me trying to go level 10 is definitely not happening. You know, it just definitely isn't happening. This guy has a Zephyr, but I don't really care because my Eldritch Beast is like my real frontline unit with School Mascot, so we're just going to play around that. But yeah, we still don't have Syndra. We still don't have Syndra 3. I think I can win this fight with a Syndra 3, so I'm probably going to lose right here. It's very close, though. Kallista's still pretty strong. This guy's level 9. I think with Kallista now, you really have to make it to level 9 in order to really realize the effects of that board. Here I'm almost at Nyla 3. I hit Syndra 3. So I think this is a turning point of the game. It's like, okay, now I have Syndra 3. I actually have a damage dealer. I'm pretty sure now it's like unbought 4able. I'm pretty sure I'm just going to go top 4 with this setup. Because the Eldritch Beast is just so strong. Especially with School Mascot. Nobody's board seems particularly crazy, in my opinion. So I also think that I have a good chance of just being able to win out in a lot of these cases. Here, I think it's better to do... I bought a couple charms, but I didn't buy that many. So I just leave it on Tahm Kench for the fight. But yeah, this Eldritch Beast, you also can get a little bit of a power-up from the star level. But, you know, it's totally fine. I think that ideally I can level for an extra Arcana unit. So I really want to make Econ intervals here. So I'm probably going to just sell these Nylas. And Eldritch Beast is going to clutch up. This is more of a School Mascot situation. This is what I was trying to say before. Like, you know, this was an awkward game where I'm hard forcing Syndra. If you don't have School Mascot, you need Mordekaiser 3, probably. You need Nyla 3. You need some extra frontline juice because the Eldritch Beast won't go that dummy hard, right? The Eldritch Beast is not going to do that much damage and be that much of a threat. So you need some extra damage dealers or some extra, like, board strength, which my board has been pretty lacking for most of the game. Here I'm not sure what to take. Just Sunfire? Yeah, I don't think I have anti-heal ever. I can just put anti-heal on the Tahm Kench. I do have a decent amount of upgraded 4 costs, though. So my board isn't, like, that weak. It's pretty good. That guy, if you saw, he has a bunch of Rakan, so that's something to look out for, but I'm not paying attention to anything. I sold the Nylas, like I said. Going for Nyla 3 is really good. I could have held on to them. However, I wanted to level this turn, so I'm pretty sure I could level this turn. I should have enough gold. I think I counted it. Maybe I counted it wrong. I have to wait 1 turn. I was hoping that after Carousel, I would be able to level this turn. But I think I have to sell the Elise and the Ashe, not to buy no charm. But I wanted that opportunity because then I can just play the Hecarim and then I just get like extra Zareth bonus and I do some extra damage. So that was my thought process behind selling the Nylas, is that I just wanted to make it to the next level, the next turn. Because right now I'm just kind of playing for placements. At first I was kind of trolling. I was like, hey, you know what? Well, I won't say trolling, but like, you know, I was kind of like thinking about the game in the sense of like, let's just do some fun stuff, right? Not playing like the most rigorous, aggressive, like dialed in play style. Let's just like take a bunch of emblems and try Eldritch and see what happens. But now I'm actually in a really good spot to just like, you know, top 4, even top 2, right? I'm beating a lot of people. The only person I'm not beating is this guy. So, you know, there is a little bit of a fear there. But other than that, it's like, I think everybody else is light work. So as you can see, I'm starting to scout. I'm starting to position. I can level here for Arcana. It's pretty strong. So that's why I sold the Nylas the turn before. I was hoping to do that last turn, but I miscounted. So I could have maybe held on to the Nylas for one more turn, and that would have been pretty nice. Random back row champions gain attack speed. I should have solo backlined my Syndra, but it's okay. Now I'm playing this guy. I think I beat him now. With Syndra 3 damage, with the Syndra 3 damage, as well as like 3 Arcana in and Xerath Charm, I should have enough damage to like snipe his backline, and this Eldritch Beast shouldn't die earlier, which is really nice. He is 2 off of Recon 3, by the way. I'm just letting you guys know now. I did not pay attention to that. I did not see the Recons on his bench. You know, subtle foreshadowing, I guess. But yeah, that's a thing that's gonna happen probably, or maybe not. You have to stay tuned to find out. Now we're on Dragon. We basically secured top 4. I don't even think this game was particularly hard. Obviously, Eldritch Beast is going to be really strong in this setup. But the Syndra is doing a lot of work, right? Eldritch, if you take School Mascot in general, it doesn't even seem like it's that crazy in the stats. Like 7 Eldritch School Mascot versus 7 Eldritch no School Mascot. Obviously, having a lot of emblems makes it so that I can play this Arcana variation that I've seen a lot of other people have success with. A lot of times even Hecarim works out really well if you have Nyla 3, because Hecarim, you can just get the AD buff on the Nyla and you play the warrior variation with Hecarim Arcana instead. And with Hecarim Arcana, you get so much extra AD and the durability. It puts you in a really, really good spot. Yeah, I'll just take another Archangels. My front line is really strong. It's hard to deal with the Eldritch Beast. He basically just dives the back line and just like makes it so that I'm chilling for a really long time. So having Archangels is actually pretty valuable because I'm going to scale them up really hard in a lot of these fights. So I just take Archangels here. But yeah, as you can see, the Syndra is doing a significant amount of damage. If we look at the damage report at the end, Syndra did the most damage, but Eldritch Beast did second most. That's mostly because of School Mascot, by the way. But if you don't have School Mascot, just imagine that it's like, what, 10% lower? I forget the exact buff that School Mascot gives. But it's still going to be substantial, right? 7 Eldritch, the Eldritch Beast himself, does a large amount for the board now. So it's really important to play around that. Here I just remover. I have 3 removers, so I use all my removers so I get Radiant item on the Syndra. That way I could guarantee that I have really good items on Syndra. If you look at the side of the game, you'll see that there's a Recon 3 showing up. I'm gonna be honest, even in this fight, I didn't notice the Recon 3. Like, I wasn't not paying attention to this guy hitting Recon 3. He was obviously more high roll than me. Like, he hit Recon 3. I had trouble finding the Syndras because I was forcing the line, obviously, so it is my fault. But I was looking at this fight, and I thought to myself, I was like, oh, I guess I'm kind of just outcapped because he has Xerath. I'm gonna be real, Recon 3 isn't that great. A lot of times, the 3-star 4 costs are instant wins when they do damage. Recon just doesn't do damage. Recon's main ability is he gives extra shielding to all of your units. So it actually was a pretty close fight considering how much higher fucking cap this guy's board is. Like, look at it. It's fucking insane. He has Recon 3, Callista level 9. Like, I don't know if Callista's in the gutter. In the stats right now, it looks like Callista's okay. But I'll keep you guys posted if Callista's unplayable, because I still think she's kind of playable. And then I hit this charm. I don't have enough gold. I should have sold the Nyla. Because having the stun, I'm not even joking. Earthquake might have been the difference maker. I might have actually beat this guy. I know that sounds crazy, but if you watch this fight, like, it actually gets kind of close. Considering it has Recon 3. Like, I know it's one item Recon 3, so it's kind of like useless. But watch this fight. It's kind of crazy that I'm level 8. He's like level fucking 9 with a Recon 3. I almost killed the Callista. Like, if I stalled for 2 seconds and my Syndra got one more cast off, there's a chance I killed a fucking Callista. Anyways, it's not that close, you know. I don't think it would have been Charm Diff. We just ended up with a second. Hopefully that was at least a little bit of a fun game to watch. I had fun playing it. But, you know, I try not to usually play like this style. This isn't really my thing. I didn't like, I wasn't like, really dialed in on the comp. I wasn't like making the greatest decisions, especially in my mid game. There was often like these awkward things that are debatably wrong in most of the gameplay. I understand that. Like I said, this was more of like a for fun game that I was playing. I just wanted to really try out Syndra. It was the end of the day, and I basically just played comps that I already knew were good from the previous patch. So I said I need to make at least one decision here where I play a comp that is newer. So I either want to play Syndra or Ahri. So I said at the start of the game, I said if I get dropped to Syndra, I'm playing Syndra. If I get dropped in Ahri, I'm playing Ahri. So that was my decision, and I went with it. I hit School Mascot, so it was very strong, and I think Syndra is quite playable, right? I felt like she was playable last patch. It just really requires you to have a Syndra opener. If you don't have a Syndra opener, there is some other Eldritch lines playing around Nyla, so those ones might be a little bit more like you can pivot into or play it from your mid game. But either way, Eldritch is pretty strong. You can try it out for yourselves. Have fun with it, and yeah, see you around.